Well, welcome back again. We're going to start the last reviewing the last concept that we're going to learn today, which is uh, understanding why is the exchange rate and where does it come from. Because the exchange rate, in by definition, is very simple. The exchange rate is the price that you need to pay for a foreign currency. That means how much do I need to pay for $1? That means I need to pay 21 pesos. That is the exchange rate, the simple definition. But for this course, we need to understand why is that number meaningful? Where does that number come from? What is the history behind all of this? So for this, to explain this, I will go and explain and tell you a story. This is a real story again. So again, I'm using the stories. And this is the story of the exchange rate. This is the story of why we have what we have today. So because of that, I need to go back on time until the early ages of civilization where humans started trading things, right? So the first form of trade was actually what we call here in Mexico, the Aztecs used to call it like that, trueque. It was an exchange of something. If we put it into financial terms, it will be a swap, exchanging something. So if I wanted a cow, maybe I could give three chickens and three chickens were equal to a cow. So it worked like that for a while in different the civilizations around the world. But what actually happened was that there was one good that was more wanted by other goods. Which is the good that you prefer everyone wants in the world? Some people sometimes say bacon because it's really nice to eat bacon. So maybe bacon is better than broccoli, of course, but it is not bacon. I think the good that everyone in the world wants today and all time in history is gold, right? Gold is the most wanted good in the history of humankind. So the story starts with the use of gold. Gold was the first thing that people traded. So if you wanted to buy a cow, instead of paying with three chickens, you paid with a coin of gold, and you acquire the coin of gold maybe by working or something like that. So it was the first form of money. It worked well for a while, but it wasn't perfect, especially because if you steal gold, then you are rich and then you can buy other things. So it was uh, uh, very very difficult and very dangerous to have gold and to be rich. So in the by the end of the Middle Age and the beginning of the Renaissance, in Italy something very interesting happened. The Italy was a country until like 100 years ago, a country that was always on war. Like there were small cities fighting between each other. They weren't actually a kingdom or a country. They were just many different cities fighting all the time. So in the it was Milan against I don't know Florence and Florence against Venezia. It was like that. But so it was extremely dangerous to be rich over there. So what happened was that there were some people who had their own army. They had soldiers and weapons, and they said, "We always work for a war. Like if there is a war, we are hired by the government of the city to fight in the war. But maybe we can start a new business when there is peace, and this new business can be to keep gold safe." So what they did was to uh, tell rich people in Italy to deposit their gold in their warehouse or in somewhere, and then the soldiers will keep the gold safe. When a rich person give their gold mm, to that organization, they will receive a paper saying it's worth 100 kilograms of gold, for instance, right? So whenever that person wanted to buy something, they went with the person who had the gold, give the paper back, they got the gold, and then they go and pay. And it worked well. But in the end, rich people said, well, I'm too lazy and it can be even dangerous to go and withdraw the gold from that guy. Why don't I give you my paper and then you use that paper whenever you want? So then someone accepted, and then on that day, the the first note or the first bill was born because they used just paper saying that it was worth something as a way to exchange goods. So it was maybe the first step into what we know about modern money. So the being being an organization who kept the money and then writing these papers was very important for the economy of Italy and Europe in general. So it was also a huge responsibility, because if you didn't have the gold to pay back to whoever had the paper, you were killed. It was like a terrible thing that could happen if you made a fraud, so you were killed. And now I think this will bright your mind right now, or it will make you remember about something. But these guys, the guys who had the organization with the soldiers keeping the money, the gold safe, and writing the notes, had a bank outside of the walls of the city, and they had a bank, and then they did the business in that bank, in that table, I would say. But they call it banco in Italian, so, and it's the same as in Spanish, banco. So that's why banks are called banks, because they were banco from Italian. And if something happened, like they couldn't pay, the first thing that they would do was to break the banco inside of that person, so everyone will notice that that banco couldn't pay back. Then later they will kill the guy who owned the bank. So they called it bankrupt, right? So it's like bancarrota. So that's why we use the same language or the same terms as Italians 500 years ago. So that's how money was born, because before that, money didn't exist. It was only gold, or it was silver, or it was something like goods. But until that happened, then every country began to use their own notes, and that is the currency, right? So in England they use pounds, in in Russia they use rubles. They use different currencies, to different names to call their currency, which was the note, that paper note. So I will cut the video in here to not make it that long, and in the next video I will continue with the story.